Hey guys, today we're taking a look at the realized model Blade Liger from Takara Tomy. This is the first in their new line of 1/100 scale posable Zoids kits, and so we're going to unbox the kit, we're going to see how posable it actually is, and we're going to compare it to some previous versions of the Blade Liger. Let's check it out!
Robo Shop.
Alright, let's start with the box, of course. As you can see, I can just about fit it in the frame. It's the same dimensions here on the front as the Genosaur, but it is, the Genosaur box is a little bit thicker, it goes up to about here. We have a similar style of artwork here as on the Genosaur. T-Spark logo, it tells us that it's 1/100 scale. This one is RMZ 001 because it's actually the first in the line. I was just too excited to get to the Genosaur, as you know. And here it still says RZ028. I should probably stop talking about how funny that is, but I still think it's funny that their designation is now, you know, how many models into the NJR line 25 years ago they were. But anyway, moving on from that, on the side here we have dust, sorry. We have the same information as with the Genosaur. It says here unpainted state. We have a depiction of the head here where it says actual size to give us an idea of the scale. The cockpit looks like it can be built two different ways because you can either have it with what it says here, common soldier, or bang and fine. I'm just going to let that stand on its own. This is, of course, Van and Fiona. And here, there's a swappable part here on the main for two different versions. We have some pictures showing the posability. These effect parts for the blades here that by now you've probably seen somewhere else, and on this side we have some stills from Chaotic Century, or at least this is Van in his Chaotic Century outfit here, and a quite long bit of lore text here that I think I am not going to bore everyone with, because I want to crack this box open. So let's take a look what we've got here. First of all, here are the oh, these must be huge. These are the effects parts, and that's the canopy. Just, you know, look at the size difference. These blade effects must be enormous on the Zoid. We have a whole bunch of sprues with black and gray parts. We have some white bits for the mane and the feet. We have the blades, which as you can see are painted. I'm going to take these out of the bag in a second so that we can take a proper look. We have, this is all of the armor from the look of it on one sprue. The tail has its stripes here painted. The feet and the teeth are molded in gold. And we have the instructions. So let's take a look at these first. Sorry about this perpetual glare problem, but I've so far haven't been able to figure out a way to solve that. Just putting some white paper in front of the light didn't help. Anyway, it is a folded up leaflet, just like the Genosaur instructions. On the back here we have a painting guide and a whole bunch of information in Japanese. We have how it all goes together. We have the parts list here, and a lot of instructions for how the gimmicks work. I am going to do this in more detail afterwards, but we have the movable E-shield generator that folds out. We have what? I wasn't aware of this. These flaps on the side here are apparently a cooling system, which has been translated here to movable completion refrigerator generator. We're going to look at this for the comic value. Rocket booster deployment. Okay, that makes sense. And then it shows how to fold out the blades, of course, that there's an attack pose to move them forward, a pose on the top where it's firing its pulse laser. Just when I thought this was going to be some funny lost in translation comedy, the rest is actually fine. Movable tail. I think the tail is all one piece and it just pivots. And we have the laser blade ignition effect, which, as you can see here, this is pretty cool. These effect bits actually go on the blades, so you don't have to swap the parts out. You just attach these on top of the blades. Appreciate that. Yeah, and the rest of this is just how it all goes together, which isn't really that interesting to look at. So we're going to move on to the sprues. Before we do that, though, how's that for a catchphrase? YouTubers need to have catchphrases to print on t-shirts. I think mine is before we do that, though, because my videos are always poorly planned. I want to take a quick look at how the cockpit goes together, if I can find that. Okay, here we go. Yeah, okay, so it always has two cockpit seats here, and you just either just put that one dude in there, or you put them both in there. I mean, you know, Fiona and Van, or Bang Fine. The reason I just thought of this is because I took the Fiona and Van sprue out of the box. So why don't we start with that? This is Van. The Fiona figure has already broken off the sprue. Seems to be intact though. Just absolutely tiny. It also doesn't have legs, by the way. The legs just end where you don't see them. Anyway, spruce. This is sort of a warm gray here for a lot of mechanical bits and pieces. We've got these tubes. I think this is neck. And we have another one in the same color with more mechanical bits. This is obviously the side of the torso because this is where the blades attach. I actually can't tell what these are. It looks very different from the way the HMM goes together, from what I remember. And then we have these black mechanical bits. Obviously these are the legs. This also looks like leg. So I guess torso's gray and the legs are black. Yeah, more leg pieces, all in black. I like how, you know, we've got this bit here with where the cap is going to be slightly off center. I don't know. This has always been sort of a standout design feature of the motorized Liger legs. Way going way back to the Shield Liger in the 1980s. We have these white bits here for, you know, the mains or the refrigerator unit. We have the regular pilot figure. Let's take a quick look here. No, he's about the same size. He's the same size as the van figure. The van figure is differently proportioned to reflect that he's a child with a bigger head, but overall he's actually the same size as the adult pilot. That is a bit weird. The painted blades. Okay, speaking as a somebody who is not an appreciator of pre-painted parts, this looks really nice. It's metallic gold. You can kind of see the flakes, but there's no swirling in the paint. And very sharp along the edges as well. Tiny little imperfection here. Otherwise, yeah, I almost hate to admit it, but they're really nice. And then here we have the feet and the teeth. I think Liz over at Galactic Zoids already complained about this. They really don't match the blade at all, which is a shame. It's actually a very nice gold plastic. If you've been following me for a while, then you know I'm always very critical of crappy gold plastic collars when they, you know, they basically look like scrambled eggs. These look nice on their own, but then you hold them up next to the pre-painted blades and it's like, meh. Plus it doesn't match, you know. Now, could you paint them to match? Of course you could, but then you're painting over the gold paint on the blades, and you'd have to. I mean, this would definitely 100% would have to be stripped first. You're not going to. This is very, very glossy. You're not going to be able to get paint to stick to that properly. Then we have the armor bits here, head, legs. This goes on the back. This goes on the side of the legs. We have the pre-painted tail plane, which also looks very well done. Here's my criticism, and I'll probably complain about this again in the final review. Look, these are the white bits. This right here, these are the white bits that go on the bunny ears, basically. They're not really meaningfully larger than these white bits. So why on earth are these separate, but these are painted on? These could have just been bits like very similar to the ones that go on the head, and you stick them on here, and then you don't have this problem. I don't know. I don't want to complain too much about this, but it does seem like a weird cop-out. We have a rather large sprue of polycaps. It's overall, there's some very big ones, but definitely far fewer than on the Genosaur. You guys might remember one of my concerns about the Genosaur is the over-reliance on polycaps. We have the hard plastic imitation of the rubber caps from the motorized model. These are also very stumpy compared to the real thing in terms of their proportions, same as with the Genosaur, but it looks fine on that one, so probably not going to be a problem. And effects bits and the canopy. Yeah, I mean, canopy is molded in kind of a thick plastic, but I'm sure it'll look fine once it's on. Been hearing problems about this not closing properly, though. And there are these effect bits, which they're pretty nice. I like that they're molded in orange. I also think, though, that just looking at them like this, am I the only one who's seeing icicles? It looks like icicles. I'm sorry. It's like, paint these white, and you've got yourself some nifty Christmas decorations. Anyway, I think that weird misspelling of the character names has put me in a funky mood, so I better stop this unboxing now before I say anything grossly inappropriate. I'm going to put this thing together, and then we're going to check it out in the photo booth. All right, let's take a look at this. We'll do the gimmicks according to the instructions first. We can move these main parts forward. We can move these out like that. All four of them. We have the blades that, first of all, can, of course, go forward like this to fire the cannons. They can go out to the side, and you see here, you really have to twist the legs forward like so, so that they can actually clear them here, but it's not a problem. So we can have the blades out like that. We'll take some pictures with this pose later, obviously. And they can also point forward in this position, so that they can be fired. And you can, theoretically, you can also rotate them here, but there isn't really a reason to do that. And when the blade's out, of course, we can pop this effects part on, which, to be honest, is a little bit annoying to do because these things are incredibly pointy. Once you have it on, though, see, it clicks in place like this, and then it looks like this, and that is pretty cool. I really don't see why these needed to be so pointy. Makes it really difficult to handle. Next, we have the cannon, the boosters, I'm sorry, under this cover here that move out. They don't do anything. You just set them up. They don't pop out. I think there's one version, I can't actually remember which one, where these pop out slightly. We can stash them. Also, the gimmicks page in the instructions very specifically says that the tail is movable, and I mean, it pivots ever so slightly here, but you can't really do anything with it. If you want it in different poses, honestly, my recommendation is you just twist it and you twist this, and then it looks like it's moved it. I mean, I've never really thought that was super important for the tail to be posable, but really it doesn't do anything. Anyway, speaking of posability, what a perfect segue. We have the legs, front legs, of course, rotate here as much as the other parts getting in the way will allow. You can bend them inward like this, and outward quite a lot, because there's this hinge mechanism here that allows you to actually spread the front legs out like that. So that's pretty cool. And also they can be bent here at the heel. At least I think that's actually the heel. Man, animal anatomy. I should know these things, And finally, the feet can be sort of rotated. They're on a very stiff joint, which is good, but also makes them a little hard to pose. And there's a hinge mechanism that allows you to not go very far, just like this. It's one of my criticisms, actually. This peg that the foot sits on is not jointed. This is literally just fixed into the leg, and so the only movement you get is as far as this piece, polycap in here is able to hinge, and that's it. Rear legs, first of all, at the hip joint here, we have the same thing. They can go in like this and hinge outwards like that with the same hinge mechanism that we have on the front legs. And of course, they are jointed here and here, like so. And same problem with the foot here. It is not on a, there's no hinge inside the leg. The only thing that moves is the polycap inside the foot. So that's a little disappointing. We have, also this thing moves up. We have the neck, which for some reason goes all the way up here, allowing you to do this and make it look like it's been decapitated, basically. It also swivels side to side a little bit, here and here, and the head can rotate a fair bit. The mouth opens and closes, of course. Close it all the way if you want. Always looks silly. And the cockpit, of course, can open. And in here we have Van and Fiona. And that's all I'm going to say. Cockpit closes. It is, maybe I'll show this in a picture later. It doesn't quite close all the way. It's not bad. I've seen some people say online that if you unplug it ever so slightly from this piece at the top here, then you can get it to close all the way, but then you have a gap here. And honestly, I think this looks better. It's not 100% perfect. The cannon down here doesn't do anything, but we have, last thing, I think, unless I'm forgetting something, we have a hip joint here that swivels and rotates. And that's it. Here, this is just plugged straight into the shoulder portion of the torso. And that's it for the posability. Let's do comparisons. So first of all, of course, here's the motorized Blade Liger. Aside from the obvious size difference due to the scale, you can also see that the proportions are very different. And also, in case you're wondering, way back when I built the motorized one in 2000 maybe, I was already getting annoyed at the lack of guns on newer Zoids, which is why the tail looks like this. I think I just used a bunch of leftover Shield Liger parts that were in the box and came up with this. Anyway, here's the HMM, and seeing them side by side like this really drives home how obviously the RMZ is based on this version in terms of proportions. Personally, I've liked it better with the smaller head ever since I built the HMM you're seeing here a million years ago, but I know a lot of people disagree. And also, yes, I pose all my Liger Zoids the same way.
Here's in comparison to the RMZ Genosaur. Not much to be learned here, but I thought I'd take the pictures so you guys can check out what they look like next to each other. Now, this is my extremely yellowed King of Flexible Mobile Liger Zero. This one is also in 1/100 scale, but it has a considerably shorter torso, more like the motorized model, and so it ends up looking a bit smaller. Next is the Zoids Aggressive Murasame Liger from Kotobukiya, the action figure, not the upscaled Supernova knockoff model kit. I have to say the RMZ really takes this one in terms of overall detail. The Murasame Liger looks just way too simple and toy-like by comparison. And finally, here's the Tomitech MSS Shield Liger. This one's in 1/144th scale, and I just thought it would be fun to see how that size difference translates. However, and this is my segue into my overall review, this comparison also brings up one of my complaints with the RMZ. These two are 12 years apart and from the same company, and the MSS Shield Liger is absolutely tiny, yet somehow it managed to have pistons on the legs that are in a separate collar. Meanwhile, the RMZ's legs look like this. I don't know, the Genosaur kit has all kinds of ingenious engineering going on with the tail and the guns that allowed them to have plenty of collar separation without overcomplicating the kit, so this just really seems like a cop-out. You can also see here how the feet are sort of floating because they don't pose that well. It's not really a problem because the kit can support its weight several times over, but it's a result of those under-articulated joints I was talking about earlier. Also, here's a better look at how the cockpit closes. It's not the end of the world, but I do wonder sometimes why Takara Tomy can't seem to make cockpits that work properly. This is just such a common problem with Zoids. My final complaint is the polycaps. Again, I just mentioned a second ago that the kit can support its own weight very well, and that's nice, but it's mostly just because most of the polycaps, and it is every single joint on the kit, are extremely tight, and that just makes me wonder how long it's going to take before they start cracking. So overall, in terms of engineering, this one seems weirdly simple and a bit undercooked compared to the Genosaur, to be honest. But then again, other than the missing collar separation on the legs, I mean, it does look really nice. Like with the Genosaur, I think you really need to see these things up close because the smaller scale makes pictures a bit deceptive. There's a ton of really nice detail on this. I personally like the HMM style proportions much better, and it poses extremely well. And all of the positives in terms of the balance between simple construction and functionality that I mentioned in the Genosaur review are here as well. If what you want out of these kits is that you can pose them a lot without having them constantly explode on you, and you don't mind the smaller scale, this is the version of the Blade Liger to go for. It's super sturdy, it holds poses extremely well, and it looks, well, almost as good as the HMM. And that's it for this one. I'm not 100% sure what's next at the moment because I've decided not to have the Command Wolf shipped from HobbyLink Japan just yet. I'm going to wait until I have some more stuff for them to send. So my guess is the next thing on the channel will be the painted Gaisak that I'm working on. Always more Zoid stuff coming out around here though, so if that's what you're into and you're not subscribed yet, might as well fix that now while you're here. If you'd like to support my work, I have PayPal and Patreon links in the description below, but it also helps if you just like the video, watch the ads, post comments, and all that good stuff. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.